The Detroit Lions have now won 7 of their last 9 games, have a chance to make the playoffs pending the Seahawks outcome in their game against the Rams earlier on Sunday. The Lions-Packers bout on Sunday Night Football will be for a playoff spot, possibly, if the Seahawks were to lose to the Rams. Most of the Lions' resurgence has been due to an offense that's been unstoppable at times and avoiding turnovers. I think Jared Goff hasn't thrown an interception in 8 consecutive games. But simultaneous to that is look, the defensive draft they had is unbelievable. Kirby Joseph is one of the top rookie safeties in the league. Aiden Hutchinson now has, I think, 8.5 sacks, or maybe it's 8 sacks overall, along with 3 picks. Jameson Williams he's the guy who's contributed the least amount of those two between Hutchinson and Williams. James Houston IV has 8 sacks in 6 games. Josh Pascal contributed 2 sacks this past week. Malcolm Rodriguez has given him some solid reps at inside linebacker. The Lions, it's very possible the Lions have had the best draft out of any team from 2022, which is saying something because the Seahawks, the Jets, the Giants, the Texans, and others had very notable drafts with 4 or 5 impact players. But the Lions are proving to have been able to get depth, up and down that draft process, and they haven't even gotten the best yet out of Jameson Williams in terms of consistent production or even giving him opportunities. He did have a 40-yard reverse in this week's win over the Bears. Look, the Bears scored 10 points in the first 2 possessions, and then Detroit's rookies just took over. Now, look, this first sack is not going to be by a rookie. It's got by D-tackle Kaminsky. But Aiden Hutchinson is the guy who forces Justin Fields to go inside on this run action away. Hutchinson's lined up here on the left side. There's going to be run action to this side. Fields is going to boot out in the opposite direction. Hutchinson is the guy who forces him to step up. And then Kaminsky, just very aware, responding to the block over here way on the right hash, and they're able to redirect. And as soon as Fields is forced to step up by Hutchinson, then Kaminsky is there to clean things up. Hutchinson's evolved in a lot. Look, he had a half an interception, a fumble recovery, and he had an interception, half a sack, and a fumble recovery all in one game. This is his half sack. I'd like to see him avoid some of these spin moves. In my opinion, you'll get the all 22 view. You'll get a little bit better angle of it. This end zone angle doesn't necessarily give you the best view of it, but here he's going to spin away from Fields, and if you ask me, it gives Fields the opportunity to kind of almost escape out to the sideline, to Hutchinson's side. I'd like to see him avoid the spin move. It seems like he uses it often, particularly as a second measure or a second reaction to an offensive guy's block. All 22, same play. You can see it's a play action. They're designing it to get up to the tight end up here, Komet. And Hutchinson is dealing with an offensive tackle who is releasing out here because I guess he's eligible, which is kind of crazy. Or rewind it back so you can see, meaning this receiver is off the line. This tackle is on. So he's initially pass setting on Hutchinson, and then Hutchinson was expecting a little bit more resistance. I would like to see him avoid the spin some and just stay upfield a little bit more and cage the quarterback in. But hey, who am I to argue? I mean, the guy's got sacks. He's got interceptions this year. Josh Pascal had a huge impact, guy that played 4 years in the SEC. A great draft pick, if you ask me. His get-off is a little late on this one, if you ask me, but he finishes the play very strong. Not an edge player like a Houston or a Hutchinson consistently. I would say they're using him as an edge player generally as a weak side 5 technique when they're going with their nickel set. But Pascal is strong enough. This is something I noticed with him last year in college. Strong enough to play a 4-eye or a 4, which is head up on the tackle. Also athletic enough to play in a tight 5. We'll give you the end zone angle of this one just so you can see it. There's Pascal. James Houston IV is going to drop out. By the way, they seem to drop him out in coverage more in this game for whatever reason, which is kind of unbelievable that they were still able to generate, I think, 7 sacks. Well, he had 3 of them, and he was often dropped out in coverage like you see here. I love Pascal, how Pascal is committed to his angle and trusts that the quarterback is going to be where he's supposed to be. When you deal with a guy like Justin Fields, he's got escapability and he's got maneuverability in the pocket. Sometimes guys don't trust and they don't go at the correct angle because they are unsure of where the quarterback's going to end up. All right, we get an example of Hutchinson and Houston both racing around the edge. In this case, Hutchinson is going to force Fields to step up, and then Houston's going to get credit for the sack because basically he takes number 70 and dumps him into Fields' backside because of the pad level that Houston plays with. Just an example of how devastating those two guys can be together, rushing off the edge. Pascal, throw him in there as well. I mean, like I said, these are his first 2 sacks of the season. This really kicked off the James Houston the fourth highlight show. In this game, he had 3 sacks. Here's that same play, all 22 angle. Gives you an idea of how Hutchinson getting upfield forced Fields to step up. And then the low pad level of Houston combined with that basically turns the left tackle, into a pancake and pushes him back into Fields to get credit for a sack, solo sack. Houston down here on the bottom, great example of hustle to force the fumble and get the strip sack. And then Hutchinson, great example of hustle from the top side of your screen to get the fumble recovery. Fields looks like possibly he's going to be able to escape here from the pressure. Kaminsky can't corral him. And then Houston comes from behind, swats the ball out, and then Hutchinson is there to get the fumble recovery. We'll give you the end zone angle just so you can confirm it. And you can see the hustle by Houston. He's going to end up dealing with 2 tight ends at the same time. And he just keeps playing, keeps fighting. And he's just so athletic. That's the thing about Houston. I think his closing speed, his burst, he's got an explosiveness to his game when he makes tackles. Hutchinson there for the fumble recovery. Really unbelievable the amount of depth and effective players that the Lions have been able to add from one draft. This is a last play or one of the last plays of the second quarter where the Lions rushed nobody. And Aiden Hutchinson kind of comes out of nowhere, according to the end zone angle at least. I'll show you the all 22 in a moment. And you can see his alignment, very unusual, but effective nonetheless. The Lions chose to rush no one and drop back in coverage. Hutchinson is down here by the bottom sideline. And he's just going to close. It's a mesh concept, pseudo mesh concept. He's just going to close. It doesn't look like Justin Fields even sees him at all and get the interception. I know he had one against the Packers. I think he's got 3 total. I might be wrong. Maybe it's 4, but it's pretty unbelievable. I know he's been on the field a lot. All right, one more sack from James Houston the fourth. And this one he's dropping out in coverage like I talked about earlier. He ends up down here around the 35 as Justin Fields is trying to work the ball into the middle of the field. And then once Houston commits to an angle, he is shot out of a cannon. You'll get the end zone angle so you can see this for yourself. And you can see how he's able to take down Justin Fields in open field. Justin Fields tried to give him a little bit of a shimmy, a little bit of a move to get him off balance. And James Houston's just too athletic. This is Houston. He's committed to this angle and gets the tackle one-on-one on Justin Fields. Very rare athlete, very unique player. 8 sacks, 6 games. Lions fans, I am sure, are incredibly excited about the draft, up and down the draft. Like I said, they haven't even gotten significant contribution from Jameson Williams yet, which they will. Josh Pascal just turned in his first 2 sacks of his career. Again, I think he's a little slow getting off the ball compared to some of the other D linemen, but incredibly strong. Looks a little thicker to me than I remembered him in the SEC last year, but him along with Aiden Hutchinson and James Houston IV, they have D-line covered in terms of edge players, guys who can play 9 technique, guys who can play a tight 5 technique in an even front. Super talented group of guys taking over. I don't want to root against an NFL team, but I would really like to see that Lions-Packers game be one that means something, that's winner-take-all in terms of the playoffs. Certainly Seattle had a great draft, and I'd like to see them rewarded for that. If they're able to pull out a win, that would be fantastic. But I'm really looking forward to the Lions-Packers matchup this week. This is a part of multiple previews that I'm going to do for that game because I think it's pretty unique that 2 divisional teams with long history of facing each other have the opportunity, possibly, to be able to compete for a playoff spot. And the Lions' manner in which they have recovered from 1-6 start is extremely interesting to me. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you think I missed any elements of James Houston IV, Aiden Hutchinson, or Josh Pascal's performance in their Week 17 win over the Bears.